I was forced to marry the youngest alien princess, but everything shifted when she revealed her true. He had trained for years, reading every treaty and studying alien cultures, believing that intelligence and patience were the greatest weapons he could wield. But nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing had prepared him for being summoned to the Xyran Empire to marry the youngest alien princess. The shuttle carrying him through the deep void of space vibrated softly, its walls humming with energy. Kale stared out of the viewport at the swirling colors of a distant nebula. Stars shimmered like diamonds on black velvet, but he could hardly appreciate their beauty. His mind was racing with thoughts of the political nightmare that awaited him. The Xyran Empire was a powerful civilization, renowned across galaxies for their technology, intelligence, and unbending pride. And now, he was expected to wed into that society, not as a guest, but as a political instrument. Kale sighed. He was no stranger to duty, but this felt different. A wedding was not a mission to him. It was something personal, intimate, something that should be chosen freely. And yet, here he was, being sent halfway across the galaxy to pledge his life to someone he had never met. When the shuttle finally docked at the sprawling Xyran capital, Kale was struck by its scale. Towers of shimmering silver stretched toward the sky, with bridges connecting them in intricate patterns. Hovering vehicles zipped between buildings like swarms of metallic bees. The city pulsed with energy, lights reflecting off the metallic surfaces in patterns that almost looked like moving artwork. It was breathtaking, but also intimidating. The palace itself was even more magnificent. A massive structure of crystalline metal and glowing panels, it seemed alive, almost breathing. Kale was met at the gates by a group of Xyran officials, their armor gleaming under the artificial sun. They escorted him through grand halls filled with statues of long-dead rulers, tapestries depicting historical conquests, and gardens where plants of impossible colors floated midair. Finally, Kale was brought before the royal council. 11 figures sat around a luminous table, their expressions unreadable. At the head of the council sat Emperor Vale, the ruler of the Xyran Empire. His eyes, sharp and calculating, flicked over Kale with a mixture of curiosity and judgment. Kale Dren, the Emperor said, his voice calm but commanding, you have been chosen to unite your people with ours. This is not a request. It is a necessity. Kale straightened. I understand, Your Majesty. I am willing to serve, but I... You are not asked to serve the Empire, the Emperor interrupted, his tone firm. You are asked to marry Princess Lyra. This marriage will seal the alliance between our worlds. Refusal is not an option. Kale's heart sank. He had expected diplomacy, not an arranged marriage. He searched for words, but none seemed adequate. I do not know the princess, he said finally. How can I pledge myself to someone I've never met? The Emperor's expression did not change. In our tradition, alliances are stronger when bonds are personal. You will meet her. You will understand her, and you will marry her. That is your duty. Kale nodded, trying to mask his unease. He had no choice. His orders were clear, and disobedience could spark political disaster, or worse. A servant motioned, and the doors at the far end of the chamber opened. Kale's eyes fell on a figure entering the room. She moved with a quiet grace, her posture perfect, her gaze confident and unreadable. Lyra, the youngest princess of the Xyran Empire, approached the table. Her skin shimmered faintly in the ambient light, a subtle silver that hinted at her alien heritage. Her eyes were large, violet, and sharp, observing everything with uncanny intelligence. Kale felt a mixture of awe and intimidation. She was young, perhaps a few years older than him, but there was a maturity and presence that seemed far beyond her years. Kale Dren, she said softly, but the weight behind her voice carried authority. I have heard much about you, and now I see you. Kale bowed slightly, unsure of how to address a princess of such stature. Princess Lyra, it is an honor. Lyra's gaze did not waver. An honor, yes, but I hope you understand that this marriage is not just ceremonial. It carries responsibilities. Choices you will not make freely. Lives depend on it, including yours. Kale swallowed hard. The words were calm but carried a weight that made him realize the depth of the situation. This was not a simple political formality. This was a delicate, dangerous alliance, and his actions could affect countless lives. The council gave their approval, and Kale was escorted to the quarters where he would meet Lyra properly. The room was elegant yet minimalist, filled with soft light and comfortable furnishings. Kale felt the weight of alien eyes everywhere, as if the palace itself were observing him. Lyra entered after a moment. She wore a simple robe, but even so there was an aura of authority about her. She studied Kale with those sharp violet eyes, her expression unreadable. "Kale Dren," she said again, more casually this time. "You may feel trapped, I understand, but you must know so am I. This marriage is not born of love, it is a necessity, and yet," her gaze softened slightly, "perhaps we can turn necessity into something stronger, perhaps we can learn to respect each other." Kale nodded slowly. "I hope so, Princess, I truly do." For the next few days, Kale and Lyra were forced into close proximity. They dined together, walked in the palace gardens, and attended ceremonies. At first, the conversations were stiff, formal, and careful. Kale learned about the Xyran Empire, their culture, their technology. Lyra shared stories of her education, her training in diplomacy, strategy, and combat. Kale realized she was far more capable than he had imagined. One evening, as they walked along a terrace overlooking the city, Kale finally dared to ask a personal question. "Princess, do you ever wish things were different, that you could choose your own path?" Lyra's gaze drifted to the stars. "Every day," she said quietly. "I love my people and I will protect them, but this marriage was chosen for me long before I understood it." "I do not resent you, Kale, but I do resent the chains placed upon me." Kale nodded, understanding her better than he expected. "I don't want to resent this either," he admitted. "I want to make it work, but it's hard when everything feels forced." Lyra's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile. "Perhaps that is why we must learn to trust each other, to turn obligation into cooperation, maybe even friendship." Kale felt a small spark of hope. It would not be easy, but maybe, just maybe, they could navigate this dangerous path together. The days passed, each one testing their patience, diplomacy, and courage. Kale encountered the subtleties of Xyran society, whispers in corridors, subtle power plays, and unspoken rivalries. He learned to rely on his human instincts, his ability to improvise, and his willingness to question assumptions. Lyra, in turn, began to reveal glimpses of warmth, humor, and intelligence that went beyond her royal facade. Then, on the seventh day, Kale witnessed something that made him rethink everything. In the central hall of the palace, a group of guards struggled with a malfunctioning security drone. Without hesitation, Lyra stepped forward, her movements precise and controlled. With a few swift gestures, she disabled the drone, her understanding of technology and control evident in every motion. Kale watched, astonished. This was not just a princess. This was a warrior, a strategist, someone who could survive and thrive in a dangerous universe. For the first time, Kale felt that maybe he had underestimated her, and perhaps himself. As the sun set over the alien city, painting the skies with colors he had never seen on Earth, Kale realized that the marriage, though forced, might not be a trap. It could be the beginning of an unexpected alliance, a partnership that could change the course of history. And deep down, he sensed that Lyra had secrets yet to reveal, powers yet to show, and a strength that could challenge the very limits of his imagination. Kale took a deep breath, readying himself for what lay ahead. The path was uncertain, the stakes high, and the future unknown, but one thing was clear. His life in the Xyran Empire was only beginning, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Xyran Empire was a world of perfection, or at least it appeared to be. To outsiders, the city gleamed with unbroken order. The towers reflected the light like polished metal, the streets hummed with energy, and every citizen moved with purpose. But Kale Dren, through his short stay, began to notice subtle cracks beneath the surface. Small things, unusual glances, hurried whispers, the quiet tension behind smiles, told him that not everything in this world was as flawless as it seemed. Kale had started attending meetings with the Royal Council, observing not only the politics but the people who ran the empire. The counselors were brilliant, each a master of their field, technology, trade, diplomacy, and defense, but they carried secrets and ambitions that Kale could not yet fully understand. Some eyed him with curiosity, others with suspicion. He realized quickly that his presence as a human and as a political bridegroom made him both a guest and a pawn. Lyra, meanwhile, seemed to glide through the political landscape effortlessly. Each motion she made, each word she spoke, carried authority. She could silence a room with a glance, redirect the flow of a conversation without raising her voice, and hold attention even when the most powerful counselors spoke. Kale watched in awe, but also in apprehension. Could he keep up with someone so capable? Could he even hope to be an equal partner in this complex game of power? One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Kale noticed that the floating flora seemed to sway differently when Lyra approached. It was subtle, but he could swear the lights of the garden reacted to her presence. He turned to her, curiosity overtaking his caution. "Princess, do they feel your presence the way the plants do?" he asked hesitantly. Lyra smiled faintly, a secretive, almost sad smile. "Not exactly," she said, "but my family has always believed that those with certain gifts affect the world around them in ways others may not notice. Perhaps you see what others ignore." Kale nodded, feeling a mix of wonder and unease. He had trained for diplomacy, but he was beginning to realize that Xyrans were more than political thinkers. They were individuals with skills and abilities far beyond anything humans had. Days turned into weeks, and Kale began to settle into his new life, though uneasily. He attended formal dinners, ceremonial gatherings, and diplomatic briefings. Each event seemed flawless on the surface, but Kale's instincts warned him otherwise. During a council meeting, he noticed a group of counselors whispering and exchanging subtle hand signals. Something was happening, something hidden from him, something that could threaten the Empire's stability. Later, Kale spoke to Lyra privately. "Princess, I've noticed some tension in the council. There are whispers, secret gestures. I don't understand it, but I feel it's important." Lyra's violet eyes darkened, her expression tightening. "You have a keen sense, Kale. The Empire is not as unified as outsiders believe. There are those who resent the throne, those who seek power in secret. I have been aware of them, but even I cannot control everything." Kale frowned. "Could it be dangerous for you, for the Empire?" Lyra nodded gravely. "Yes, and perhaps for you too. That is why we must trust each other. You may not see all of it yet, but your insight, your human intuition, can be a strength here. Sometimes, humans notice things Xyrans overlook because you think differently." Kale felt a small surge of pride. He had always believed that human adaptability and creativity were underestimated in the galaxy, and now Lyra had said it aloud. "Then I will do my best," he said firmly. "Whatever comes, I will help." Lyra studied him for a moment, her gaze softening. "Good, that is all I ask." The next day, Kale accompanied Lyra to the central hall of the palace, where a training exercise for the palace guards was underway. It was a demonstration of Xyran combat and strategic skills, meant to show Kale the disciplined strength of the Empire. Lyra moved among the guards with precision, correcting their form, observing their techniques, and even predicting the opponent's moves before they happened. Kale noticed that the guards responded not only to her authority, but to her unspoken understanding of strategy. During a pause, Kale could not resist asking, "Princess, have you trained in this all your life?" Lyra's lips curved slightly. "Yes, but not just training. Observation, strategy, and anticipation are as important as skill. I learned to read people long before I could wield a weapon properly, and sometimes it is the unseen threat that is most dangerous." Kale was impressed, but also uneasy. He realized that Lyra's abilities extended far beyond what she revealed in public. She was not only the youngest princess, she was a tactician, a protector, and perhaps someone with secrets he could not yet fathom. That evening, Kale returned to his quarters and reviewed his observations. The counselors who whispered in secret, the subtle tensions among palace staff, and the glimpses of Lyra's hidden talents painted a picture of an empire that was both magnificent and fragile. Kale's human perspective, his ability to notice detail, question assumptions, and act spontaneously, began to feel like a tool that could balance Lyra's extraordinary abilities. As he pondered this, a soft knock came at the door. Lyra entered, carrying a small device that emitted faint pulses of light. She gestured for him to follow. "Come," she said. "There is something I want to show you." They walked to a secluded observation deck overlooking the city. Lyra held the device up, and a three-dimensional map of the city appeared, glowing in midair. Tiny lights indicated points of interest, potential threats, and areas under surveillance. "This," Lyra said, her voice low and serious, "is a record of unusual activity. Some areas are being tampered with, security breaches, unauthorized access, and coded messages that have gone unnoticed by most. Someone within the Empire is plotting against the throne." Kale's eyes widened. "Within the Empire? But how? And why?" Lyra shook her head. I do not know all the details yet, but I am watching. And now so are you. We must learn to work together. Your perspective, your instincts can help me identify what I cannot see alone. Kale nodded, a sense of responsibility settling over him. The Empire was magnificent, yes, but it was vulnerable. And now he realized he was part of the defense of something far greater than himself. For the next several days, Kale shadowed Lyra as she moved through the palace, meeting with counselors, guards, and advisors. He observed her patience, her calm under pressure, and her ability to read situations quickly. But he also noticed the small vulnerabilities, the way she paused when a certain counselor spoke, the faint tension in her shoulders when she discussed certain projects, and the occasional flicker of concern in her eyes. Kale realized that even someone as strong and capable as Lyra carried the weight of responsibility alone. One evening, during a quiet moment in the palace library, Kale ventured to speak more personally. "Princess, do you ever feel alone in this? Even with your abilities, your training, and the Empire behind you?" Lyra looked at him, her gaze softening in a way he had not seen before. "Yes," she admitted quietly. "There are times when the weight of expectation, duty, and responsibility feels unbearable. I cannot show it publicly, and I must always appear strong. But with you, I feel I can share a small part of it. That is why I want you to understand the Empire not just as a diplomat, but as a partner." Kale felt a connection forming. The forced marriage, which had seemed like a trap, was slowly becoming a partnership built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. He began to understand that Lyra's true strength was not only in her abilities, but in her willingness to protect and guide, even when the burden was heavy. That night, Kale returned to his quarters with a renewed sense of purpose. The palace, the council, the whispers of conspiracy, all of it was part of a delicate web. And in that web, he realized he and Lyra could become a formidable team. As he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Kale felt a small but growing sense of determination. He had come to the Xyran Empire expecting to be a pawn, a participant in a political game he could not control. But now he realized that he could make a difference, not only for himself but for Lyra, the Empire, and perhaps even the fragile peace of the galaxy. Outside his window, the lights of the alien city shimmered like stars brought down to Earth. Kale knew the coming days would be difficult, filled with challenges, threats, and decisions that could change the course of history. But for the first time, he felt ready. Ready to face the cracks in the Empire's armor, ready to uncover the hidden dangers, and ready to walk the uncertain path alongside Princess Lyra. The game had begun, and Kale was no longer just a pawn. He was a participant, and perhaps if he was clever and brave enough, a hero. The palace was quieter than usual that morning, almost too quiet. Kale had learned to notice these things, the subtle change in the hum of machinery, the unusual pause in staff movements, the faint tension in the air that humans instinctively recognize. Something was wrong. Lyra walked beside him, her expression unreadable but her senses alert. "Kale, stay close," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "I have detected irregular energy readings in the lower sectors. It could be a malfunction or it could be more." Kale nodded. His heart beat faster, not out of fear but anticipation. After weeks in the Xyran Empire, he had learned to trust his instincts, and Lyra's. Together, they had discovered small conspiracies, subtle manipulations, and hidden plans. This, however, felt bigger. They entered the lower halls of the palace, corridors lined with shimmering metal panels that pulsed faintly with energy. The walls hummed as if alive, and Kale could feel the vibrations through his feet. Servants and guards moved quickly, avoiding their path, sensing urgency. Lyra stopped before a set of doors. She extended her hand, and a holographic display appeared, scanning the area. "Someone has tampered with the security protocols," she murmured. "Not an accident. Someone is trying to gain access to sensitive areas. We must move carefully." Kale's mind raced. "Do we know who?" Lyra shook her head. "Not yet, but the pattern is consistent with known factions outside the palace, and perhaps even inside. We have to investigate before it escalates." Together, they slipped through hidden passages, avoiding the main corridors. Lyra's movements were precise, fluid, almost silent. Kale, though heavier and less practiced, tried to match her pace, relying on observation and quick thinking rather than grace. As they approached the source of the disturbance, a low alarm suddenly blared, echoing through the palace. Red lights flashed across the walls and automated defenses activated. Kale's eyes widened. "It's a trap!" he shouted. Lyra's expression did not change. "Stay focused," she said. "We must reach the control chamber, quickly." They ran through the corridors, dodging security drones that had been hacked to attack intruders. Kale remembered his training. Humans were known for improvisation, adaptability, and bold thinking. He grabbed a loose panel and used it to block a drone, redirecting its energy beam harmlessly into the wall. Lyra glanced at him, a flash of approval in her violet eyes. "You are learning quickly," she said without slowing her pace. Kale grinned briefly. "Humans have to adapt fast, otherwise we don't survive." They reached the control chamber, a large room filled with glowing panels, holographic displays, and intricate machinery. Kale was impressed by the complexity, but Lyra moved as if she had been born to operate it. Within seconds, she assessed the breach, identified compromised systems, and began rerouting the energy flows. Kale assisted where he could, following her instructions and offering human solutions, quick improvisations and outside-the-box ideas that complemented Lyra's methodical expertise. Together, they formed an effective team, each covering the weaknesses of the other. Suddenly, a hidden panel slid open, and a group of masked intruders stepped out, weapons aimed at them. Kale froze for a split second, then reacted instinctively. He grabbed a nearby tool, swung it at the nearest attacker, and sent them staggering. Lyra moved with lightning speed, disabling the others using both technology and hand-to-hand techniques that Kale could barely follow. The fight was over almost as quickly as it began. Kale's heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through him, while Lyra remained composed, scanning the room for any remaining threats. "Who are they?" Kale asked, breathing heavily. Lyra examined the intruders, their uniforms marked with insignias he did not recognize. "They are from the Verk faction," she said, "an interstellar group known for destabilizing governments. They have been trying to infiltrate the Xyran Empire for months, and now they have reached the palace." Kale felt a chill. "But why now? Why here?" Lyra's gaze was sharp. "Because someone within the Empire has helped them. We cannot rule out betrayal from within. The Council is powerful, but even the most loyal have secrets." Kale swallowed hard. The stakes were higher than he had imagined. The Xyran Empire was not just under threat from external forces, its own people might be involved. And he, a human diplomat, was in the middle of it. Lyra activated a communication link to the Palace Security Command. "Seal all exits," she ordered. "Lock down the lower sectors. Anyone moving without clearance is to be detained." Kale assisted, following her lead, and soon the palace was secured. The intruders were captured, interrogated, and their devices analyzed. Kale marveled at Lyra's efficiency. She was not just a princess, she was a protector, a strategist, and now he realized a leader in times of crisis. As the immediate danger passed, Lyra turned to Kale. "You did well," she said softly. "You acted decisively without hesitation. That is something I value in a partner." Kale felt a mix of pride and humility. "I couldn't have done it without you," he admitted. "Your skills, they're beyond anything I imagined." Lyra's eyes softened slightly. "And yet your human instincts saved us in ways I could not predict. Your ability to improvise, to think differently, it is invaluable. Perhaps humans are underestimated in the galaxy for a reason." Kale smiled. It was the first time he felt like an equal in this relationship. Not just a political pawn, but a partner who could contribute meaningfully to the survival of the Empire. That evening, after the palace returned to a semblance of normalcy, Kale and Lyra sat together in a quiet garden. The floating flora glowed softly, reflecting the tension and relief of the day. "Princess," Kale began hesitantly, "do you think this attack was just the start, or is there more coming?" Lyra looked up at the stars, her expression serious. "This is only the beginning. The Verk faction will not stop easily, and I fear that the person who helped them from inside may strike again. We must be prepared, Kale. You must understand that in this empire, loyalty is complicated and threats can come from anywhere." Kale nodded. "Then we prepare." Together, Lyra studied him for a moment, as if weighing his determination. Finally, she smiled faintly. "Yes, together." Over the next several days, Kale and Lyra worked tirelessly. They trained with the palace guards, studied the Verk faction's tactics, and analyzed the palace security systems. Kale contributed his human ingenuity, ideas that were unconventional but effective, while Lyra applied her tactical brilliance and knowledge of Xyran technology. Through it all, Kale began to understand the depth of Lyra's abilities. She could anticipate enemy movements, manipulate energy fields, and operate complex machinery with ease. But he also saw her humanity, the moments when she doubted herself, when the burden of responsibility weighed on her, and when she quietly questioned whether she could protect everyone. One night, as they reviewed security reports, Kale noticed a pattern. "Princess, look at this," he said, pointing to a series of anomalies. "The breaches all follow a schedule every third night, and they all originate near the same council chamber." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You may be right," she said. "Someone is using the cover of routine to plan attacks. This is subtle, deliberate, and it may indicate that the traitor is close to the center of power." Kale felt a shiver. The palace, which had seemed like a safe fortress, now felt fragile. Every decision, every step could be the difference between life and death, and yet he also felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. "Then we must act," Kale said firmly. "We can't wait for them to strike again. We have to find the traitor before they do more damage." Lyra studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded. "You are right, and we will. Together we will uncover the threat, protect the Empire, and ensure that those who try to harm us fail. But be warned, Kale, this will test everything you are, your courage, your wit, and your loyalty, and it will reveal the true strength of the human spirit." Kale swallowed, feeling both fear and determination. He had been thrust into an alien world, forced into a marriage he did not choose, and faced dangers beyond his imagination. Yet, for the first time, he felt fully alive. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy, nor the most advanced, but they were adaptable, clever, and resilient, and in partnership with Lyra, perhaps they could face any threat. The night stretched on, and the stars over the Xyran capital seemed to shine brighter than ever. Kale knew that the coming days would be filled with danger, secrets, and revelations. The Verk faction was only the first wave, and the traitor within the palace had yet to be revealed. But he also knew that with Lyra by his side and his human instincts guiding him, they could face whatever came. As he looked at her, standing poised and confident despite the weight on her shoulders, Kale felt a new sense of hope. Together, they could protect the Empire. Together, they could uncover the hidden threats. Together, they could show that courage, intelligence, and trust, human or Xyran, could overcome any danger. The hidden threat had revealed itself, but Kale and Lyra were ready. And the true test of their partnership and of the human spirit was only beginning. The palace was quieter than usual that morning, but not in the same tense way as before. There was anticipation in the air, a sense that something significant was about to happen. Kale Dren walked beside Lyra, his mind buzzing with questions. For weeks, they had uncovered plots, stopped intruders, and analyzed strange patterns in the palace. Yet despite their efforts, Kale felt that they were only scratching the surface. "Princess," Kale said, breaking the silence, "you've been incredible through all of this, but I can't help wondering there's something you haven't shown me yet, something more." Lyra glanced at him, her violet eyes calm, thoughtful. "You are perceptive, Kale. Yes, there is more. But it is not something I reveal lightly. The abilities I possess are not for show. They are a responsibility, and if misused, they could harm the Empire we are trying to protect." Kale nodded. "I understand, but I also think it's time I know. We're a team now, aren't we? I need to understand your full strength if we're going to stop the traitor and the Verk faction." Lyra studied him for a long moment, then she nodded. "Very well, but you must promise me one thing." "Anything," Kale replied, "that you will remain calm. What you are about to see may defy what you think is possible." Kale swallowed but nodded again. "I promise." Lyra led him to the palace's inner sanctum, a place Kale had never seen before. The room was vast, circular, and illuminated by a soft, golden light that seemed to come from nowhere. In the center was a pedestal with a crystal pulsing with energy, faintly resonating with the walls of the room. Kale felt the air hum, a vibration that reached deep into his chest. "This," Lyra said, gesturing to the crystal, "is the heart of my family's legacy. It is a source of energy that has been protected by the Xyran lineage for centuries. I am its current guardian." Kale's eyes widened. "Guardian, what does that mean?" Lyra took a deep breath. "It means that I can draw on this energy, not to harm, but to defend, to protect, to heal, and to guide. It also enhances my abilities, my speed, my strength, my perception. But it is not infinite, and it requires discipline, focus, and responsibility." Kale studied her, trying to grasp the magnitude of what she was saying. "So, All those times you moved with precision, predicted threats, and handled intruders, that was because of this energy. Lyra nodded, partly, but the rest comes from training, observation, and understanding. The energy is a tool, not a crutch, and now I want you to see it in action. Before Kale could respond, Lyra raised her hands and the crystal pulsed brighter. The light expanded, flowing into her body, surrounding her in a faint aura. Kale felt a rush of warmth and power in the room, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with energy. "Watch closely," Lyra said. Suddenly, images appeared around them, holographic projections of the palace, the city, and even the nearby sectors. Kale could see threats before they happened, paths of intruders and energy fluctuations in real time. Lyra moved effortlessly through the projections, touching points of light, redirecting energy flows, and neutralizing potential dangers with precision. Kale's mouth went dry. "This is incredible," Lyra turned to him. "And this is only part of what I can do. There are limits, yes, but understanding the full extent of my abilities is crucial for the challenges ahead. And you, Kale, can help me wield this power wisely. Your instincts, your creativity, your human perspective, these complement what I can do in ways even I cannot predict." Kale felt a surge of pride and responsibility. Humans were not the most powerful beings in the galaxy, yet here in this moment, his perspective mattered as much as Lyra's strength. I won't let you down," he said. Lyra smiled faintly. "I know you won't." Their lesson was interrupted by a sudden alarm. The palace's security network had detected unusual activity again, this time near the council chambers. Lyra's aura dimmed slightly as she redirected her focus, but Kale noticed her movements were faster, sharper, more precise than anything he had seen before. "We need to move," Lyra said. "This may be the traitor's next attempt." Together, they moved swiftly through the palace corridors. Kale had grown accustomed to Lyra's abilities, but seeing them in action under pressure was astonishing. She could sense the exact positions of guards and intruders, anticipate movements, and coordinate the palace defenses without a single mistake. Kale did his part, using his human ingenuity to block corridors, divert drones, and analyze unexpected hazards. When they arrived near the council chambers, they found a group of masked figures attempting to access secure archives. Lyra's aura flared, and energy surged from her hands. In an instant, the intruders were restrained, not harmed, but incapacitated by a controlled energy field. Kale stared in awe. "Controlled restraint," he muttered. "You could have destroyed them." Lyra shook her head. "Strength without control is dangerous. I protect, not destroy. That is the difference between power and responsibility." Kale realized that Lyra's true power was not only in her abilities, but in her judgment. Her ability to use that power wisely, ethically, and strategically. It was a lesson humans could appreciate. Strength was meaningless without purpose. After securing the intruders, Lyra led Kale to the council chamber. There, they confronted a counselor acting suspiciously, someone who had been subtly manipulating events behind the scenes. Lyra's energy aura flared again, a silent warning to the traitor. Kale stepped forward. "We know what you've been doing," he said firmly. "It ends now." The counselor's eyes widened, realizing that both the princess and the human diplomat were united, a combination of strength and strategy. Cornered, the traitor attempted to flee, but Kale anticipated the escape route and blocked it, forcing them to surrender. Lyra stepped closer, her aura dimming but still strong. "Betrayal has consequences," she said, "and loyalty is not optional in the Zyran Empire." The traitor was taken into custody, and the council chamber returned to order. Kale felt a mix of exhilaration and relief. Together, he and Lyra had prevented a disaster, combining human ingenuity and Zyran power. That night, Kale and Lyra stood on the palace terrace, overlooking the city. The lights of the alien metropolis shimmered like a galaxy brought to Earth. Kale felt a deep sense of respect for Lyra, not just as a princess, but as a guardian, a warrior, and a leader. "Lyra," he said softly, "I've never seen anyone like you, not in all the galaxies I've studied, not in all the stories I've heard. You are incredible." Lyra looked at him, a faint blush on her cheeks. "You have seen me as I am, Kale, and yet you did not falter. You did not retreat. You acted with courage, with intuition, with humanity. That is something even I cannot teach." Kale felt a warmth in his chest. For the first time, he realized that their marriage, which had seemed like a burden, had transformed into something else. Not love, at least not yet, but a deep respect, trust, and partnership. Together, they were stronger than either could be alone. I want to keep learning, Kale said. Not just about your abilities, but about you, about the Empire. I want to help in any way I can. Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the city lights. And you will. But remember, Kale, knowing my powers is not just about the abilities themselves. It is about understanding responsibility, judgment, and restraint. That is what makes strength meaningful. Kale absorbed her words, realizing that this was a lesson he would carry forever. Humans had survived countless challenges not because of raw power, but because of courage, creativity, and morality. And now, alongside Lyra, he had the chance to demonstrate those qualities on a galactic stage. The next days were filled with preparation. Kale and Lyra trained together, coordinated defenses, and studied intelligence reports. Kale's human perspective often provided solutions that Lyra's calculated methods did not anticipate. And Lyra's abilities, once revealed, gave Kale confidence that together, they could face any threat. For the first time since arriving at the Xyran Empire, Kale felt fully part of something greater than himself. He was no longer a pawn in a political game. He was a partner, a strategist, and a protector. And he knew that the true test of their alliance and of the human spirit was still ahead. Outside the palace, the stars glimmered in silent promise. Kale felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that with Lyra's power and his own courage, they could face even the darkest threats. The Verk faction and the traitor within the palace were only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable. But for the first time, Kale believed that together, human and Xyran, partner and princess, they could overcome anything. And as Lyra's energy pulsed softly in the quiet night, Kale realized that the true strength of the Xyran Empire, and perhaps even the galaxy, lay not in power alone, but in trust, partnership, and the courage to act when it mattered most. The Xyran capital was alive with tension. For days, Kale and Lyra had prepared for the inevitable, the attack from the Verk faction and the traitor who had infiltrated the palace. Security measures were doubled, patrols reinforced, and defenses tested to their limits. But even with all their planning, the unknown always carried risk. Kale stood beside Lyra on the palace terrace, watching the horizon where the first signs of the enemy fleet appeared, sleek, dark ships moving with calculated precision. "They're here," he said, his voice steady but edged with excitement. "All of our training, all of our preparation, it comes down to this." Lyra nodded, her violet eyes calm, yet burning with determination. "Remember, Kale, this is more than a fight. It is a test of strategy, judgment, and trust. We must work together. Your human ingenuity will be just as important as my abilities." Kale smiled, a surge of confidence coursing through him. "Then let's show them what humans and Xyrans can do together." The first wave of attackers reached the outer city defenses. Energy beams lit the sky as automated turrets and defensive drones engaged the enemy. Kale observed the battle, calculating the patterns, predicting weaknesses, and relaying strategies to the palace control room. Humans were adaptable, quick to think, quick to act, and Kale's instructions gave the Xyran defenders a dynamic edge. Lyra moved with controlled power, her aura glowing as she manipulated energy fields to redirect attacks, shield civilians, and disable enemy ships with precise bursts. Kale was in awe, but he knew that raw power alone would not win this battle. The human element, the ability to improvise, to take calculated risks, and to think unpredictably, was what could turn the tide. A group of enemy fighters broke through the outer defenses and targeted the palace directly. Kale noticed an unusual pattern in their approach, one that the automated systems had not accounted for. "Princess, left flank," he shouted. "They're exploiting a blind spot in the defense grid." Lyra adjusted immediately, directing energy barriers to block the path. But Kale saw another opportunity. "If we lure them here," he suggested, "then cut off their retreat, we can trap them without destroying the palace." Lyra's eyes sparkled with approval. "Your idea is clever, let's do it." Together, they coordinated the move. Kale instructed the defenders to redirect energy fields and manipulate turrets, while Lyra used her powers to guide the enemy ships toward the trap. The combination of human unpredictability and Xyran precision worked flawlessly. The enemy fighters, caught off guard, were forced into containment zones and neutralized without collateral damage. Kale realized something vital in that moment. humans were underestimated because our strengths were not always visible. We could adapt, improvise, and act boldly in ways that more calculated beings could not predict. And paired with someone like Lyra, whose abilities were extraordinary but precise, the results were unstoppable. The main fleet, larger and more organized, was approaching. Lyra's aura flared, pulsing with energy as she prepared to confront the incoming ships. "Kale," she said, "we must take the fight to them. If we wait, they will gain the upper hand. Can you handle the navigation and strategy for our counterattack?" Kale nodded. "I can." "Let's make them regret underestimating us." They boarded a palace command vessel, a sleek ship equipped with advanced weaponry and Xiran energy shields. Kale immediately took control of navigation and targeting systems, using his human instincts to predict enemy movements and adjust strategies in real time. Lyra's powers amplified the ship's systems, giving them an advantage no enemy could anticipate. As they engaged the enemy fleet, Kale marveled at the synergy. Lyra's energy manipulation allowed them to disable multiple ships at once, while Kale's unconventional strategies forced the enemy into unpredictable maneuvers. Together, they created a battlefield advantage that was both precise and flexible, a combination of human intuition and Xiran mastery. During the battle, a warning alert appeared on the ship's console. "Multiple cloaked vessels approaching from the rear," Kale reported. "They're trying to flank us," Lyra's violet eyes narrowed. "Then we will meet them head-on." She extended her hands, and energy flared from the ship, forming a protective shield around their vessel. Kale quickly calculated a new trajectory, predicting where the enemy would emerge. When the cloaked ships revealed themselves, they were immediately caught in the trap Kale had devised. One by one, the enemy vessels were disabled, their energy absorbed by Lyra's aura and redirected safely into space. Kale felt a surge of exhilaration. Humans were not the strongest species, nor the most advanced, but our creativity, courage, and adaptability were unmatched. And here, in this moment, that very ingenuity was saving an empire. The battle reached its climax as the Verk faction's flagship appeared, a massive, heavily armed vessel. Lyra's aura pulsed with intensity as she prepared for the final confrontation. "Kale," she said, "this is the moment we have been preparing for. Can you handle the strategy?" Kale's hands flew over the controls, his mind racing with calculations, probabilities, and possibilities. "Yes, trust me." Together, they coordinated a multi-layered attack. Lyra's energy disrupted the flagship's shields, while Kale used unconventional tactics, deceptive maneuvers, unpredictable attacks, and calculated risks to exploit weaknesses in the enemy formation. The flagship faltered under their combined assault, and Lyra delivered a precise energy strike that immobilized the vessel without destroying it. The enemy, realizing defeat, retreated. The city below erupted in cheers as citizens watched the horizon clear of enemy ships. Kale and Lyra had done it. They had protected the Xiran capital, neutralized the Verk faction, and thwarted the traitors' plans. Kale exhaled, feeling the weight of the battle lift. "We did it," he said, turning to Lyra. "Together." Lyra smiled, her aura dimming to a soft glow. "Yes, Kale, together. And that is the lesson you must remember. Power alone is meaningless. Strength without trust, without partnership, without courage cannot protect anything. But combined, humans and Xyrans, intellect and power, heart and skill, we can face anything." Kale felt a deep sense of pride. The marriage that had once felt like a trap had transformed into something else entirely. It was a partnership built on trust, mutual respect, and shared purpose. He had discovered that human ingenuity, adaptability, and courage could shine even in the most alien and advanced civilizations. In the days that followed, the palace and the city returned to normal. The traitor was taken into custody, and the Verk faction was pushed back beyond the borders of the empire. Kale and Lyra continued to work together, strengthening defenses, improving strategies, and ensuring the safety of the Xiran people. But something had changed between them. The forced marriage, once a source of tension, had evolved into a true partnership. Kale had learned to trust Lyra's abilities, and Lyra had come to value Kale's human perspective. Together, they had proven that the combination of human courage and Xiran power was unstoppable. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Kale turned to Lyra. "You know, I never expected to find myself here, not just on an alien world, but fighting alongside a princess who can control energy with her mind." Lyra chuckled softly. And I never expected to find a human who could anticipate enemy movements, devise strategies on the fly, and act with courage in the face of danger. You surprised me, Kale. Kale smiled. I guess humans are full of surprises. Lyra's violet eyes met his, and for the first time there was a warmth in her gaze that went beyond duty or partnership. Yes, she said softly, and together we are stronger than anyone could imagine. Kale felt a sense of fulfillment he had never known. He had come to the Xyran Empire as a diplomat, uncertain, unprepared, and reluctant. But through trials, danger, and revelation, he had discovered the power of human ingenuity, the strength of partnership, and the courage to act when it mattered most. As the stars glittered above the palace, Kale knew that their story was far from over. The galaxy was vast and full of unknown threats, but for the first time he felt ready. Humanity, in partnership with Lyra and the Xyrans, had proven that courage, intelligence, and trust could overcome any obstacle. And in that moment, Kale Dren understood something profound. Humans were not the strongest species, nor the most advanced, but they were resilient, adaptable, and brave. And when combined with the extraordinary, they could achieve greatness that even the stars would remember. The Xyran Empire was safe, for now. The Verk faction had been repelled, the traitor exposed, and the palace secure. But more importantly, Kale and Lyra had formed a bond that went beyond duty. Together, they had shown that the alliance between humans and Xyrans was not just political, it was a force capable of shaping the galaxy. Kale looked at Lyra, her aura now calm and radiant in the evening light. "So," he said with a grin, "what's next for us?" Lyra smiled, a rare and genuine expression. "Next, we build. We strengthen the Empire, we prepare for what comes, and we continue to learn from each other. Humanity and Xyrans working together, there is no limit." Kale felt a thrill of excitement. The adventure was far from over, but with Lyra by his side, he was ready for anything. Together, they had faced danger, uncovered secrets, and proven that courage, ingenuity, and trust were more powerful than any weapon. And as the stars shone above the Xyran capital, Kale knew that this was only the beginning of a legend, one where humans and Xyrans stood side by side, stronger together than alone, and capable of facing the vast, unpredictable galaxy with courage and hope. The battle was won, the Empire safe, and the partnership forged. Humanity had shone brightly, not because of power, but because of courage, creativity, and the heart to act when it mattered most. And Kale Dren, the human diplomat who had once felt like a pawn, now stood as a hero. Alongside Lyra, the youngest princess who had revealed her true self, and together they would face whatever the galaxy dared to challenge next.